everybody, it's me, Mama, with Mama Knows Her Salt. So glad you guys could join us today. We're going to have a really good recipe for you today. With summertime coming up, we got to thinking about what might be a good thing to talk about. So guess what we're going to talk about? My favorite barbecue ribs. Now, my husband is going to help me with this because he is the smoke pit master of our family. Usually he does all the smoking of the meat and everything. Every time we have a barbecue, it's a team effort. I am usually doing the sides and he's doing the meat. So what we did last night is we prepped the ribs back on the skin side. We took it and we scored the skin, and then we took the rub and rubbed it all into the meat. And so what I'm going to give you today is the recipe for this rub, because if you go out and try to purchase a rub for barbecue, I think I looked at several, it was 60 or more milligrams per quarter teaspoon. You can't put much rub on any kind of rib with a quarter teaspoon. So you're going to be able to use this one. It's going to make about a cup and a half. So you can be as generous as you want, because it turns out that this one, it only has 17.5 milligrams of sodium in the entire thing, the whole 1.5 cups. So be liberal. Yay, have fun with it. Add all you want to it so that you can have a nice smoky kind of rib when we're done. Now, I'm going to tell you about what's in this recipe. We put in 3/4 cup brown sugar, 1 tablespoon of lemonade mix, 1 teaspoon of mustard powder, 1 tablespoon of smoked paprika, 1 tablespoon of garlic powder, 1 tablespoon of onion powder, a tablespoon of black pepper, a teaspoon of dried basil, a teaspoon of rosemary, and a teaspoon of oregano. And then we added 2 tablespoons of chili powder. Now remember, with your chili powder, you want to look on the back and make sure that it's not the mixture kind, because if you look on the ingredients, sometimes they'll have more than just chili powder in there, or chilies. They'll have salt and other spices. You want to avoid those. You're going to have to maybe go get a little bit pricier one just to keep that salt out of it, so that you can use it liberally and use as much as you want. So get the kind with no salt. So nothing in this particular mixture has salt in it except for the 1 tablespoon of lemonade mix. And I think I said that. I hope I didn't skip over that. It was 1 tablespoon of a lemonade mix. Now we used Country Time. You just check on the back and see what their sodium. Again, read those labels, guys. All right, again, we took it and we prepped it all last night, and then what we're going to do with this, see, and it's been sitting here, so I'm going to mix it up with my fingers. And we're going to take this and we're going to liberally put this over the ribs, so it'll have a nice crispy topping. And the reason I'm also going to have my husband come help me, because I'll drive him crazy not doing this the way he thinks it ought to be done. And he'll be in the background narrating anyway and telling me how I'm doing it wrong. So again, he's the one that's gonna take over once we get this all on here. I'm gonna flip these over. Now these are gonna go in the smoker, so yeah, I'm gonna touch the meat, and then we're gonna touch the put my hands in here again, but it's all going to go in the smoker and be cooked, so it's going to be fine. No big deal. Put a little bit over this, and I might save some of this for when we get it out there. He may want to add some more to it, because he's real persnickety about his ribs. Okay, I think we're all set with this. So what we're going to do is we're going to just take this outside and put it into the smoker. So we're going to just stop for just a minute, and because unless y'all want to walk with me out there, I think it'll be easier if we move everything out there.
All right, we got our ribs ready here to go. Now the thing about smoking is that if you want to, you can go online. There's tons of information about smoking, and it's done different ways. If you're going to be in a competition, there's certain ways they like the ribs to be trimmed. There's certain texture they like to end up with. I just cook for people, and they seem to like it. So this is what I do. If you do it a different way, it's perfectly fine, and your family will enjoy it. What I do, I have one of these boxes that uses, I put my smoked chips in, and I've got like a mixture here of hickory and some cherry wood. I like to kind of blend the woods. And I'm going to put them in here. You don't have to use one of these. I'll show you what I do as a backup, because once this is burned out, which won't take a whole lot of time, once this is burned out, then you're going to have to replace your wood chips. And this thing is tremendously hot when it comes out of the smoker. You don't want to be handling it. So you can put your chips in here like this.
And you got those wet, right?
Yeah, they've been soaking for about an hour. And you close this down. Over time it's going to get a little bent. Especially if you move often. Now, what I do as a backup is I take some foil and I'll put some more chips on it. And kind of make a little packet out of it. Just close it up like that. And then I'll take a knife and I'll just make a couple or three on the bottom, and then some holes like this. You don't want the chips to actually burn, you just want them to smolder. That's why you soak them. And what this does, it limits the amount of oxygen that can get to them, so they won't burn off or smolder off as fast. This is going to go into the smoker. I'm also going to there's a tray in the smoker or a pan that holds water, and it just kind of keeps the moisture into your food. And some people use beer, I just use water. And we're going to go down here and put them into and get the smoker ready.
That's your backup for later?
Yeah. Okay. And then we're going to take the ribs down and I'll place them on the rack. Now your smoked chips are going to go right down on your fire here so they can start smoldering. And then your ribs are going to go here.
You need a hot pad?
Yeah.
Okay. Hold up.
And your water is going to go into this pan. As far as temperature of smoking, I like to smoke them kind of slow, so I smoke from about 225 to 250. I try to hold it in around that amount of temperature, and tends to finish up with a rack of ribs or two in about 3 hours or so, just a little over. You can kind of tell how well they're doing by looking at them, and when they start to pull back off the bottom of the bone a little bit, well, you know they're right about ready. Now, as far as the racks are concerned, I had a friend that taught me. He's from North Carolina, and he was really good at barbecue. He liked to wrap his ribs up, and I do that sometimes, but when I've got multiple racks, I don't like it because it tends to boil them off. So I like to take and put a couple of little holes in the bottom of the foil here, so if there's any water or liquid that comes down and builds up too much, why it will kind of drain off. And then we're going to take the ribs and just lay them out flat. Now these are untrimmed. They're not cut, trimmed up to be like St. Louis and Memphis style. We'll trim them later. I like to cook the whole thing and then do the trimming afterwards.
Well, that way all the juice stays I feel like Vanna White.
Where's the car?
I don't know.
Just make 2 or 3 little holes here, and the juices won't build up, and boil your ribs. Boiled ribs are kind of tough.
And these things have been marinating with that rub all night long. So
We're starting to get some smoke now, so we're going to close everything up and let it cook. Keep an eye on the temperature. Only adjust it if it gets too high or too low, and so we'll see in about 3 hours.
yum.
Pulling the ribs, you can tell that they're done because it's firm and it's pulled back from the bone along here. So these are ready to come out. Now you can test them with a thermometer if you want to. It's really hard to tell on ribs because they've got so many fat spots and so on, but I just look at them and ascertain whether they're done or not by how they feel and that they pull back from the bone.
Yummy. We're gonna take these inside. I wish y'all could smell these.
I
want to eat them right now.
They'll need to sit a little bit, let the juices incorporate back into them, and then we'll cut a couple of them off so you can see what they look like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it'll sit about 15 minutes, just enough to get those juices to where they're going to stay in the meat, and it just won't all go away if we cut it. So anyway, see y'all back inside in about 15.
All right, so here's our ribs that we took out of the smoker. They were actually there just over 3 hours, maybe 3 hours and 5 minutes or so. They're ready to be cut. They've sat for 15 minutes. The juices should be kind of incorporated back up into them. I'll turn this so you can see it a little bit better and see how the rib ends are sticking out. That's one indicator that the ribs are done. The slabs of ribs like this have thicker areas, so you just want to make sure, if you want to, you can check them with a thermometer and make sure they're at least at I say 150. Department of the Food and Drug Administration says 145, but ribs are better if you take them on up to about 190, 200 degrees because they got a lot of fat in them and it needs to kind of go down through the meat. So these were untrimmed. So what we're going to do is, this is the rib end here. We're going to cut this off and we'll save it and we'll use it for some collards or beans or something like that. It's got a lot of smoke in it.
So y'all save it, put it in the freezer.
We're also going to cut the rib ends off here. Now, one of the great things about ribs is they get better in the freezer. They're like chili or pinto beans or anything like that. If you'll slide them into a food saver, suck all the air out, freeze them, let them sit there. When you get ready to use them, bring them out, drop the whole thing into some water and warm them up about 200 degrees in the water. They're going to be really nice and juicy and seems to drive the smoke flavor all throughout the meat. It's just something that we use when we make them ahead of time when we're going to have company over. Okay, so we're going to cut through this and we're going to get them trimmed up and then we'll slice off a rib. There's your rib end. See how juicy they are? You got your smoke right there. And then we're going to take the ends off of these guys. And all this can be used for beans or anything else like collards. This part here, you could chop it up, use it for a sandwich if you want to.
Instead of that salty bacon or the fat back or whatever, these are great to add some flavor to your beans or to your, like he says, collards, vegetables, whatever. It's a great way to reuse things.
And we're going to take off one of these end ribs just so you can see it, because we're actually going to eat these tomorrow.
Memorial Day, yay! Oh, well, we might have to eat them right now.
There you go. Smoked ribs.
All right, guys, have we made you hungry yet? I hope so. Thank you, my dear. I don't know if I said this, Wes. He's the reason this has all started, the whole low sodium thing, and he's a real sweetheart and helped me with this today. So I appreciate that so much, and you guys enjoy. I love ya. Mama loves ya. Have a good one.